Warriors matchup with the Nets. LeBron wanted to remind some people of something. Big matchup tomorrow night in LA as the Nets make the move from the Valley of the Sun, where they had a huge rally last night against Phoenix with Steve Nash leading the way on the bench. The King reminding people the Nets' big three is pretty good, but there was another big three that was also pretty good not too long ago.
And looking at the collection of talent that the Brooklyn Nets have, is there a team that you can compare it to in league history having that much offensive firepower on the same group?
Have we forgot about Steph and Clay already?
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
There you go. There you go right there.
Jay.
Well, that's the last great trio that we've seen. Offensively, though, and I understand what they're saying, like the skill sets are just different, right? The continuity and space that Golden State played with, how they move without the ball, is obviously a scheme that was very successful. We're still determining whether this is successful with three guys who can all dance with the basketball. They're all magicians with the ball. And actually, at this point, they're averaging 10 more points per game. But it's still to be determined on whether they will be greater. But offensively, they're one of the most gifted trios in the history of the league. You can't deny that.
No doubt about it. Tomorrow,
I'm not arguing with LeBron James.
This is a big spot. Jay,
Why
of course.
not?
Because I'm with LeBron. For some reason, I'm a Golden State guy when it comes to that. Maybe because I haven't seen enough of the Brooklyn Nets do it together. It's just been a handful of games, and maybe they need to win a championship for me to start talking about the greatest scoring trio of all times. Because when I look at those dudes, KD, Steph, and Clay, it was just wet and wicked.
But scoring trio, the Brooklyn trio averages more points than that. Watson's going back to Houston, Key. Ain't no way in hell.
Ev, there's your Jack Easterby drop. We were talking about it this morning. Just mark that one on the tape, okay? That's between me and Ev. Hang on. Everybody says it's over for Deshaun Watson and the Texans. I mentioned an Eagles legend. Ron Jaworski was with our show yesterday and actually said he's one of the few people that's saying not so fast.
Knock on the GM's door, knock on the owner's door, set up a meeting and try to get things done that way. But I think by the end of the day, not today, but in the long-term end of the day, I think it'll all get settled. Deshaun Watson will be the quarterback of the Houston Texans. He is a great talent.
Okay, last thing. Normally we just move on there, but the odds of that seem remote, right?
Yeah, Jaws is wishful thinking, but I don't think that Deshaun wants to be in Houston, and you can't force a guy happiness by keeping him. You don't want an unhappy quarterback in your organization.
I just don't. There's nothing that I've heard from my sources that tell me that that's going to happen.
Who's your sources, Jay?
Who are their sources, Key? That's why I can't reveal the sources.
That's how they remain anonymous. Yes. Unnamed source. Lastly, for the first time,
Fake news.
this one-win team, no, this is real news. This one-win team has the #1 overall draft pick for the first time in franchise history.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Man, I wonder what they're going to do with it. We haven't really talked about it much. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, former NFL quarterback. He was on the show last week, minutes before Trevor Lawrence's pro day, which went exceedingly well. Not surprised there. Those are very crafted and scripted. Hasselbeck is saying Trevor Lawrence isn't a slam dunk, but he's about the closest thing you can get to it.
He checks a lot of boxes. He does a lot of things really well. Is it a guarantee that he's going to be great? No, I'm chuckling here and Zubin, talking about Andrew Luck as this generational player. Look, that's always the fear. That can always be the case. But if you're looking for the thing that gives you all this concern, I just don't know that there is something that's obvious that gives you concern about him.
I had mentioned, Key, that he was the next Andrew Luck, and obviously all the expectations we put on Luck that went obviously unfulfilled. What do you think here?
Well, I think, a lot of it due to health concerns in Indy with Andrew Luck. But, look, Andrew Luck played solid when he was in there and he was healthy. There's no question about it. He certainly showed you flashes. I'm just not one guy that always likes to sit up and say a guy is a can't-miss prospect, and because it doesn't work like that most of the time. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to fall into Trevor Lawrence's favor. What will Jacksonville surround him with if he is the pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Because we don't know. We have no idea. But wherever he goes, I think he has an opportunity to be successful depending on who's the coach, who's around him, just like any other quarterback in the National Football League. I'm not going to pump him up just because. And, of course, his workout was exceptional. Hell, your workout would be exceptional, too, in pat and go.
If I was thrown to Sharon Peak, I don't think it would go as well for me as it would for Trevor Lawrence. That's okay.
Choreographed. It's easy to kind of, base those metrics on choreographing the workout, though, Zubin. But look, Urban Meyer is going to select Trevor Lawrence with the first pick in the draft. Like, this is going to happen. I don't think Urban Meyer accepts this job unless they do that. And they have the most cap space in the NFL, so they're going to bolster up their lineup. The bigger question to me is, how will Urban Meyer handle the locker room moving forward, and what will his relationship be with Trevor Lawrence, and how will that mold over time, considering, if Urban Meyer continues to make decisions like the one he tried to make with Chris Doyle the other day, I wonder how that relationship will pan out.
That's absolutely a great question, and a question that he's going to have to answer for the locker room when he comes back from OTAs.
I wonder if Trevor Lawrence could get thicker. That's one of my concerns with him.
Sort of like a beanpole. Does he look like a beanpole?
Yeah, he's 6'6", and he's 217 pounds or something like that. That's thin, man. That's like like almost like plastic, man. Like, he's just so long. And then tall quarterbacks, I've always had an issue with a really tall quarterback. When you start to get over that 6'4.5", 6'5", you start tipping over that, the balls are coming down. Like, your delivery and your launching point just naturally brings the ball down because everybody you're throwing to is much smaller than you. Either you're throwing over their head or you're throwing at their feet. And so I wonder what happens with those mechanics at the next level, not what they did at Clemson. And some of his balls at Clemson, if you go back and you watch the tape and you really break it down, a lot of his balls were either high or in the dirt.
Right. Two things to mention there. One, I've heard you and many people say it's that elongated throwing motion. Everything is long. The body, the hair, the arm. And to your point, Justin Fields gets the same thing. So I'm going to put it on Fields. I'm going to put it on Lawrence. In college, you throw that 50-50 ball up, your guy at Clemson or Ohio State is going to come down with it more than 50% of the time because that's the weapons that you have. So Trevor goes from being a great family guy, his new football family, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You leave that up to me. Let me say that.
Okay.
Kia, well, Justin Herbert is 6'6".
Yeah, but I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it won't work. I said it concerns me because historically, when you got big quarterbacks like that, Drew Bledsoe was great at doing it. Vinny Testaverde was great at doing it. But there's guys that have come into this league that's really tall because of the elongated delivery, the ball sail, or because they're throwing the smaller guys, they're hitting the ground a lot more than what you would see from a guy who's 6'2", 6'3". It's just different.
Think about a Brock Osweiler. Think about a Paxton Lynch. Think about Dan McGuire, even going back all of those years.
Dan McGuire's about 6'10".
Joe Flacco.
That's Joe Flacco, right? Certain levels of
Joe
success.
Flacco was great on the deep ball. His intermediate stuff was an issue. Mm-hmm. And we could ask Torrey Smith, who's going to join us later on in the show, a former receiver for the Baltimore Ravens.
He'll be here in just under an hour. Do you like how I did that? Just under an hour, 55 minutes. When you gift a year of ESPN Plus, you're giving thousands of live events, exclusive originals, the full 30 for 30 library, and more. Surprise a sports fan in your life with the year of ESPN Plus. Visit ESPNplus.com/gift-a-year for more details. Let's go from A to Z for more NFL QB talk.
From Dallas to D.C. and everywhere in between. From A to Z.
And from A to Z is brought to you by Merrill Guided Investing. Visit merrilledge.com/investing goals. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith Incorporated, both a registered broker, dealer, and investment advisor, member SIPC. Adam Schefter said it could be an unprecedented wave of quarterback movement, maybe 18 quarterbacks on the move. The two biggest, to this point, of course, Goff and Stafford, 2 down, 16 to go. Can't wait till the countdown.
16 to go.
It'll be 15 as soon as Carson Wentz gets moved because Adam says that's coming here in just a second. Another one of those guys could be Alex Smith. Heroic comeback, NFL Comeback Player of the Year, but probably making a little bit too much money for the Washington football team. Last week, their head coach, Ron Rivera, joined our program when Key asked him about reuniting with one Cam Newton.
Well, the biggest thing we're doing right now, Keyshawn, is we are truly evaluating the position. We're going to exhaust all our options, and we're going to really look at them and talk about them. Will we consider them? Well, we'll most certainly look at them, and most certainly we'll talk about them. But there are no promises.
What do you think? I mean, he kind of danced around it, as you'd expect.
Yeah, and that's what he's supposed to do because right now Cam Newton is with the New England Patriots, even though he's not under contract. I look at these highlights of Cam Newton, positive highlights. He looks good in the positive highlights. but
Right.
he's got some bad ones
Right.
too.
We do have that negative B-roll. We can run at any time.
No,
if we want to
don't
dial
do that.
up, it'll be the same 4 plays over and over again. Last thing I want to tell you for the Washington football team, last 2 years, Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins, Taylor Heineke, Colt McCoy, Case Keenum have all started games. That's 5 starting quarterbacks in the last 2 years. They got to find a guy and move on. Let's move on to the NBA. Ahead of their first matchup with the Nets